All right. It's time to get started with another one. Welcome, everybody. Okay, today we're going to talk about our school system. Okay, and today I went to a function, and that's what they were talking about virtual reality in our schools. So I figured that it would be good for me to do a little podcast, and I'm going to try to use the software I got myself without any help. So bear with me here and see if I can get myself plugged here. My name is William Milborn, and as you can see, the title of this little podcast I'm doing right now is Empowering Parents. We're going to address the failures of our public school system, and I'm going to try to do this in a way to where I'm not trying to beat up the school system. I'm just trying to raise a few issues that were in my mind and that were raised today and talked about today at the forum that I went to. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a brief introduction. Okay, and let's talk about what is the purpose of our school systems. Okay, when I thought about coming on here, that's the first thing that I really had to ask myself. What is truly the purpose of our school systems? Are our public schools designed to meet the needs of every child? And I say every child, I mean every child. Or are they more focused on sustaining the system itself? You know, uh, this is a question that I ask myself and I'm asking you today. Are our public school system designed to meet the needs of every child? Or are they more focused on sustaining the overall system itself? Now, I just happen to believe that it's important that we empower parents and that we must address the imbalance in budget allocation, which heavily favors salaries over student resources. Okay? I have nothing against teachers getting paid, I have nothing against administrators getting paid, but I do have a big problem when we are paying these folks and our students are not getting what they need. Okay? So, despite large budgets, including over 600 million in Cumberland County alone, most of that money goes towards salaries and benefits. So where does that leave our students when it comes to having the books, when it comes to having the technology, and the learning tools that they truly need? Cumberland County got $602 million, and it dedicates 80% of that to employee salaries and benefits. That leaves very little room for the actual materials that the students need to thrive. Now, that upsets me because I'm out here ignorant to the fact that 80% of our budget is spent on teachers' salaries. I said, how could I be so woefully ignorant? But it happened. So I did a little research when I came home from this meeting today because I hear the stories about we're spending too much money and it's being wasted. I hear the stories about we don't have enough money for the children and the needs that they have. And then when I got home and I see that we got $602 million in our budget, and I know a little bit about budget, but 80% of it is going to employee salaries and benefits. I say I can certainly see that there's room for arguments on both sides of the aisles. And, I got that from, City Views newspaper, plug them in, and I think that the article read what you need to know about Cumberland County Schools proposed $602 million budget for next year. Okay, so again, this is the introduction, and I'm asking y'all, what is the purpose of our school system, and who is responsible for the public schools failures? You know, are the schools overfunded or are they underfunded? Okay. And then, in light of those questions, what do you think about the $602 million budget that dedicated 80% of that money to teachers and benefits, administration, you know, things of that nature? And again, I don't care if you're for or against. It's just something I want you to think about. Okay. So, the second point that I wanted to raise was that, um, oh, by the way, before I move on, the Cumberland County Commissioners did approve a budget for fiscal year 2024 2025, and many nonprofits don't receive any funding. And that was another thing for people who were advocating for the nonprofits. Point number two, okay, the current state of the public education system. I want to ask about that. So let's talk about it again. On average, 80% of school districts' budget goes towards salaries, okay? So while teachers, I believe, are essential, there's a critical need to balance this with funding and resources, okay? In Cumberland County, for instance, 339 million goes to salaries, leaving a much smaller fraction for student supplies, for technology like that VR technology that I was looking at today, that obviously we do not have the money to spend even if we wanted, and for extracurricular activities. But in spite of all of this, many of the nonprofits still won't receive any funding from that allocation, which some people think is a problem. Okay. So just to give you an idea, a teacher in North Carolina earns an average salary of, I think they said, around $55,000, which, while is important, it still leaves classrooms underfunded, woefully underfunded, in my opinion. Many of the teachers report buying their own supplies or turning to online crowdfunding to meet basic classroom needs. And I'm here to tell you, I've seen it with my own eyes. My kids are in public school for the first time. And my wife and I have homeschooled our kids for the last 16, 17 years. And because of some family situations, we decided we was going to put them in public schools. And they are faring well, but I will say that we have to supplement their education, which is our responsibility to begin with, in my opinion. And it is clear that these schools do not have what they need to make my children successful. And I'm just raising awareness because maybe you don't know that yours may not have what they need either. So we need to talk about this administrative overhead. Somebody raised the point to me that there's a superintendent that is making over $250,000 a year, and our schools are still lacking up-to-date textbooks. Now, while I don't have no problem with the capitalist system and people making what they are due, if that's what the superintendent is due, or principals, administrations, or whoever is due, but there's a bigger problem. The bigger problem for me is that we can't pay these people and then not give them the resources that's needed to teach our children. We can't pay these people and then we get results that are unsatisfactory as parents. So again, it's not that I'm saying that we shouldn't pay them. I'm saying that we need to find a way to where we can do both. We cannot just give these people the money and there's no real accountability. I also want to talk about that some districts have tried to address this by freezing administrative raises or cutting non-essential staff. But even doing that's not enough to bridge the gap for students and their resources, as I pointed out. I mean, as I was talking to someone earlier today, I said, even you cut that superintendent's salary by $100,000, it ain't going to change the situation. It's not even going to put a dent in it. The whole system, in my opinion, needs to be overhauled. Okay? Which brings me to my next point. Okay? We're playing the blame game. And playing the blame game is not going to solve the problem. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what we can do to empower parents. Okay, so there's a balance between parental responsibility and empowerment. Okay, public discourse often blames parents for failing to engage, while systematic issues such as underfunding schools and overworked teachers, in my opinion, are the real problem. Okay, schools must provide the necessary support structures for parents to feel empowered. Okay, so instead of us playing the blame game, and all of us do it, the Republicans is blaming the Democrats is blaming the Republicans, the teachers is blaming the administrators, the parents is blaming the school system saying the parents aren't involved. Let's stop blaming one another, and let's realize that we have to be the change individually. Okay, so let's talk about parental empowerment. There's a couple things that North Carolina is offering right now that truly does empower um, parents to be able to make better decisions for their children, in my opinion. Okay. In North Carolina, we have school choice and we have the opportunity scholarship. Okay. Okay. So these school initiatives allow the parents to make decisions that work best for their children. I made the decision that worked best for mine for many years in homeschooling. In North Carolina, the Opportunity Scholarship enables the families to use state funds for private school institutions, okay, private school tuition, basically. However, some people argue that this drains the money from already underfunded public schools, and I would say they're probably right. It is draining the money, and these schools are underfunded. But playing devil's advocate, what do you want these people to do? Continue to send their students to a school system that's broke? You know, I like that somebody's at least giving them an alternative and making a way for those who truly want to get out to exit and save their child's life. And that may be a little extreme for some of you, but that is the case for some of them. Okay. So let's take, for example, the experience of a parent who moved their child from a struggling public school to a charter school, where they found smaller class sizes and a curriculum that matched their child's needs. This could be an example of how school choice can empower families, but also raises concerns about equity for families left in the public schools. And I totally get that. Okay. And this is the point that I'm trying to make, is that we have to find the middle ground. I said before, I homeschool my children with my wife, and increasing numbers of families are choosing to homeschool to a to provide like a more tailored education, often with better outcomes. Now, all families don't have the resources to make this a viable option, okay? But policies could provide more support for homeschooling families. I know while we were homeschooling, it was very taxing economically, and we made a lot of sacrifice for many years buying material. But even while we were buying material, we still paid taxes, and we suffered in silence because we knew it was unfair. We didn't have the school choice, or at least we didn't know about it. And then when we learned about things like the opportunity scholarships, we were trying to transition our kids by putting them into a charter school or a private school because we knew the condition of Cumberland County public schools, but we couldn't do it because in order for you to go from going to an opportunity scholarship, you had to be in a public school first. Hence is the reason why we put our children in public school, which was supposed to be for 1 year last year, so that perhaps we can apply for that opportunity scholarship. Okay. So again, I think the point there was, it's parental responsibility, and if the parents are going to be blamed, then we have to empower them. And I wasn't empowered, y'all. I'm just going to keep it a buck with you. We had to make it happen ourselves, and some of you are probably doing that right now. So point number 4, we're going to talk about the challenges with the state enforced guidelines. This is another issue that was brought up today. And they were talking about that we have too much reliance on standardized tests in public schools, and it's narrowed the curriculum, forcing schools to teach to the test. My kids come home telling me that they being taught to the test all the time. And instead of fostering a creative, critical thinking environment, many parents feel that their children's potential is being stifled by these rigid assessments. And I would say that the parents aren't alone. I've heard the teachers over at the school that my children attend complaining about the same thing. So there's definitely a problem with the state enforcing too much. They're trying to do too much. And I realize that their heart might be in the right place. But if we're going to overhaul the system, we need to address this too. How much is enough and how much is too much? So, for example, in North Carolina, students are required to take the end of grade test, or the EOC, which is the end of course exams, which are tied to school funding and teacher evaluations. What happens is that schools in lower income areas, which often have fewer resources, by the way, come on now, y'all, make it make sense. They tend to perform worse on these tests, and it perpetuates a cycle of underfunding. Some people think it's a conspiracy and that this is happening on purpose. I don't think so, but it is a mystery to me how it's happened in a lot of underprivileged areas. Okay, so the standardized testing is a problem because when they don't test right, they don't get the money. Okay, and then you got curriculum constraints. These state mandated tests. Curriculums are often seen as too rigid. It really leaves little room for the students to innovate or adapt to the specific needs of their students. It leaves, little room for the teachers to adapt to their students. Okay, so maybe decentralized education control would give them more autonomy, and the local schools and parents can, they could be more personalized with their learning models if we decentralize these things. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people against that also, but I'm just throwing it out there. It may not be best in this dispensation of time to have a one size fits all for everybody. Okay, because what is happening right now is not working. So let's have the intestinal fortitude to perhaps try something new. So possible solutions could be like a blended learning model. Okay, I know when we were homeschooling our kids, some learned one way, another learned another way, and you had to figure out how the child is learning, and then you might have to take some stuff over here, some stuff over there. One might be good on the computer, the other one may not like the computer at all. One might like the books, and one might want to be online. I think that we need to have blended learning models. Okay, some people might learn with the virtual reality, like what I went to go see today. Okay, but we need to introduce blended learning, where part of the instruction occurs online, perhaps, and part in person. Some of that stuff worked good for COVID for some of these kids. This can help the schools reduce overhead costs and increase the flexibility in learning. It's working in colleges. Why couldn't it work in these schools? And it's just something to think about. We have to start thinking outside the box, in my opinion. Okay. Again, I'm not trying to let this be a session where I'm trying to tear down our public school system. I'm just trying to put some information out here based upon what I experienced today in the meeting that I was in, and some of the things that I was hearing from people who are potential elected representatives for our school system. Point number 5, as I was saying, education reform, in my opinion, is the path forward. We need to consider reallocating this funding. We need to suggest revisiting how the school budgets are allocated, period. Let me say it again for those in the back. We need to suggest revisiting how school budgets are allocated, period, from the ground up. And we need to propose legislation that mandates a minimum percentage of school budgets be spent on classroom materials and student services. This seems like common sense. 80% of the budget? Come on, folks. We need to advocate for reducing administrative bloat, streamline that stuff, and redirecting those funds into direct student support. Okay? This might require us to totally rethink how we're doing our school system. I know people talk about the ratios from student um, to teacher. Those could be things that could be manipulated or worked around. I mean, everything needs to be explored at this point. Uh, why did I say that? Because there are schools out there having success. I read about one in New York City. It's called Success Academy. It's a charter school network, and it started cutting non-essential administrative roles and focusing on student outcomes that can lead to better educational performance. Um, and it even was successful in underserved areas. So it can be done. Another way forward or another educational reform could be expanded school choice. Now, we already got school choice here, okay? But I think that we should encourage policies that give families more educational options. I know that this ain't popular, especially amongst many of the Democrats, okay? But school choice, through programs like vouchers and charter schools, does allow parents to move their children out of underperforming schools. But I do agree with the Democrats in saying that there needs to be some regulation to ensure that the public schools are not entirely defunded as a result. We have to find the equitable balance. I guess that's the point that I'm making. Okay. And I think that's the bigger issue is that we need to find the common ground and meet in the middle. Another reform that we could probably take is equitable funding. Okay. If you think about the need for reforms and how the states distribute education funds, schools in low income areas, as I said before, receive far less funding than the wealthier districts. That's why you got everybody trying, I want to move into the better district, Jack Brits, in our area. I mean, we know every city or county has their districts, okay? But adjusting the funding formula to provide more resources to underfunded schools could help level the playing field a little bit. Listen, everybody wants what's best for their child. But in getting what's best for our child, we still have a fiduciary responsibility as a community to see about our neighbor. All of us have different social and economic statuses, okay? Let's not forget about the least of these. And I guess that's probably my biggest point. While I lean more to conservative values per se, I do acknowledge that part of the problem is that there's not enough conservatives that are trying to uh, get some kind of social programs or some kind of things to help the least of these, and that's terrible, especially when that's the party that quote unquote, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, waves the banner of so-called Christianity, okay. And the higher moral ground or whatever. But I digress. Okay, I'm an independent, by the way, so please don't get offended. Okay, I take it from both sides. Last point that I like to make, point number 6, is that we need to weigh parental accountability versus systemic failures. Okay, we need to balance this responsibility, in my opinion. Okay, we need to clarify. Um, basically that while parents are the key to a child's success, they can't overcome system, systemic, failures in public education on their own. It's not gonna happen. You want to put it all on the parents, but they can't do it on their own. A failing system is going to limit the parents every single time. It's going to limit their ability to make choices that are in the best interest of their children. Okay. Again, if they don't have the opportunity to get them out of there, the only thing they can do is send them there. Some people can't homeschool their kids. That's just not a viable option. And now you're putting these parents in a position of where they have to send their kids to schools that are underperforming, that have kids with behavior problems and poor social influences. And, in America today, is supposed to be the greatest nation in the world. In my opinion, these things just ought not to be so. Okay, we got way too much money coming down the pipeline to, in my opinion, have these issues. Okay, so I'll give you an example for those of you who don't understand. Okay, a parent who works multiple jobs, which there are many in Cumberland County who have worked multiple jobs just to make the ends meet. They don't have the time or the resources to supplement their child's learning despite their best efforts. Okay, now consider they may have more than one child. Okay, so in these cases, it's really unfair to place the blame solely on them for their child's academic struggles. I mean, really, let's have a heart. Okay, y'all know who I'm talking to. Let's have a heart. Let's talk about the community and school partnerships. There's a lot of potential for partnerships with local businesses, with nonprofits, and other community organizations to fill in the gaps where schools and families are struggling. A lot of times I ask myself, do people really want to? Because we got a lot of nonprofits, we got a lot of churches, we got a lot of money because we're able to raise all kinds of money come election time. There's a lot of ways that problems can be solved, but I'm starting to really feel in my heart that maybe people don't want the problem to be solved. Maybe they're so concerned with their own selves that they talk the rhetoric that they want to do something, but truly they don't. I don't know. I'm just asking. Schools could create some kind of collaborative partnership with industries for like internships and mentorships and resource donations. And I know we had the capacity here because, while Cumberland County isn't the richest county, it certainly ain't the poorest. And we can find money for the things that we want. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox, and I'm just gonna say in conclusion, there's systematic issues in the public education system. And the overemphasis on salaries at the expense of student resources and the importance of giving parents more control over their children's education should take priority, in my opinion. Okay, we can't continue to pay people all this money and not get the results that we deserve. Okay, so what do I want you to do? I'm glad you asked. Let's see. I got a little thing here. We're gonna say change begins with you. You got to be the change that you're looking for. You have to find it in your heart to see outside of your situation. This is my final thought. And see, how can I help? If you're one that's privileged to where you're able to have your kids in the best schools or take your kids out and put them in private school, is there a possibility that maybe you can find ways to where we can do some things for other children? I mean, I don't know. I think what it boils down to is that it begins with you. And this is not just a poor people's problem. This is not just a, a teacher's problem. It's not just an administrative problem. It's an our problem. And everybody needs to play their part. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but it's like I said, you have to be the change that you're looking for. Okay. You need to engage your local and state representatives, your school board members, okay, the ones that are running for office right now. You need to know where they stand on these issues and how those issues affect you, okay? It's too many parents that don't know the hierarchy and how things are working in their government. Not just when it comes to education, I'm just talking about period. We have to change that. We can put the responsibility on the elected officials to tell us what they're supposed to be doing, but come on now, do you really think they're going to do that? Is that really in their best interest for them to tell you what they're supposed to be doing so that you can hold them accountable? No. But you can use your smartphone, which I had one close to me, pick that thing up and find out who your representatives are and what they're supposed to be doing for you and how these laws are being made and what you can do to lean on them to get the support that you need to see the things getting done that need to be done. This is why the opportunity scholarships are being done now. This is why school choice came about, because you have people who do care that said, hey, I see that there's failure over here, and as a result of this failure, the public school system ain't doing nothing about it. I want options, and I'm fighting for options. And I'm telling you, I ain't mad at them. I'm just saying that we gotta find a way to make sure that we don't make the public school system worse, or we might as well just throw it all away. I mean, really, we got to do something, okay? We got to get involved in our community, folks. Hey neighbor, how you doing? I've been living next to you for the last 5 years, and I just figured I'd let you know today my name is Will. Oh, I see you got kids, and my kids said that they see your kids at school, but they never wanted to say hi to them. You know what? Yes, it does start with me. And why don't we have y'all over for dinner? Oh, well, oh, okay. Well, you, okay, maybe it's not comfortable coming in each other's house yet, but well, maybe we can meet at, McDonald's or something that's cheap to where we can get to know each other and see what we have in common with one another and talk about some of these issues and see if we can find solutions and bring other people together so that we can fix these things for our children. Because the truth is that if we don't get involved and do something, it's going to affect us all in the long run anyway. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I took and homeschooled my kids, right? Yeah, I could take and put my kids in private school, but at the end of the day, they're still gonna have to be interacting with these other people who may not have the wherewithal to do these things that I'm doing, and they're gonna be affected by their lack of resources eventually. So I might as well do my part now. That's my thinking anyway, you know. But anyway, I digress. And lastly, it's election time, and these folks out here pandering for your vote. Make your vote count. They gonna dance. Make them dance. Back them in a corner and ask them exactly how they feel about these issues. Don't let them give you these generalizations. Say, what is your plan? What are you gonna do? The truth is, a lot of them don't have a plan. I'm just gonna be honest with you, and that's the wrong answer. So we got a lot of work to do, y'all, and I just wanted to talk about this today. We gotta be the change that we want to see. The real transformation starts with you, and get involved today and learn about your school system, learn about the options that are good for you, and more importantly, let's try to fix what we already have before we no longer have it. All right, y'all, I'm out.